Hi, it's Dwyer. It's Thursday, September the 12th, 2019. GamblersAdvisory.com, a free site. BettingAngle.us, a free site. Let's talk boxing. But first, remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, it's an old situation in boxing that has produced some of the most memorable fights in history. The old lion, the person who sits on the throne, the person who has the public's attention, pivoting to take on the relatively unproven, by comparison, young lion who represents the future, who looks like he's about to dominate the division for the next, we'll say 3 to 8 years. An argument can be made that the best decision Floyd Mayweather made during his career was to fight Saul Alvarez when he did. Things look different in the future than they do at the time. I understand Floyd made more money fighting people like Conor McGregor, right? Fighting Manny Pacquiao. But understand, Canelo has not lost since that Floyd fight. Every time Canelo wins, Floyd's legacy receives a dividend. Canelo has gone on to the middleweight division, to the super middleweight division. According to rumor, now he's venturing into the light heavy division. Officially, he's beaten people like Gennady Golovkin, Danny Jacobs. When you hear Canelo's record from someone like Michael Buffer right before a fight, and Buffer mentions that one loss, fight fans will ask themselves, well, who was that loss to? Floyd Mayweather. Right? For everything Mayweather has done, understand when you discuss Floyd, you can sum up his career really in 2 sentences. Unbeaten, or two words, or a sentence in a word. The word is unbeaten. Right? The sentence is, he's the guy who beat Canelo. An argument can be made that the best move Mike the Body Snatcher McCallum, a great fighter, if you remember the 1980s, made, was in fighting Julian the Hawk Jackson when he did. Hawk is one of the best KO punchers I've ever come across. McCallum was a technician. McCallum realized that if he let this monster continue to grow, then there might be a day where the monster becomes so big that, like Godzilla, it would just walk through and decimate the city, decimate McCallum. So McCallum took him on relatively early, beat him. When you saw Jackson and he had that one loss, you understood. That one loss was to Mike McCallum. McCallum went on and did many great things in his career. But when I think of Mike McCallum, I think of him beating, stopping Julian Jackson. Let me go further. The best fight I have seen in the last 5 years, and like most of you, I've seen my share, but the best event, I shouldn't say fight, we'll say boxing event, was former champion, the old lion, Vladimir Klitschko, multi-year heavyweight champion. Right, a few years ago, if you ask someone who's the heavyweight champion of the world, there was only one name. Vladimir Klitschko. There was Vladimir Klitschko, and then there was everyone else. Right? Klitschko then loses to Tyson Fury. Fury then has some problems that prevents the rematch. Then Klitschko ends up in the ring in front of 80 to 90,000 people, depending on who you believe, against a young lion in his prime, then reigning unbeaten heavyweight champion, like Klitschko, Olympic gold medalist Anthony Joshua. It was literally Klitschko, we'll call it 1.1, because I still believe Klitschko 1.0 was Vasiliy Klitschko. Right? But we'll call it Klitschko 1.1 versus Klitschko 2.0. Both guys a lot of power. Both guys big right hand. Both guys accurate power punchers. Both guys known for stoppages, known for power. Not really built to go the distance. Right? It was Tyson Fury, in my opinion, who brought movement back to the heavyweight division. Movement that was missing during the Klitschko years. But understand, with Fury on the shelf at the time, Vladimir Klitschko against Anthony Joshua was about as good as it got. In other words, no one was thinking about movement when this fight tipped off. And the fight delivered. Both men put the other on the canvas. Both men had their moments. Right? Klitschko, a great finisher. Has a dead in the water. Anthony Joshua fresh off the canvas in front of him and does not finish him. I'm just telling you, we're going to be talking about that sequence. Boxing fans are going to remember that sequence for decades. Right? Of all the fights I've seen in the last few years, this fight as an event had the energy, delivered on that energy. It's memorable. Right? To keep the fight as memorable, Joshua is going to have to deliver on the promise. If he gets stopped again by Andy Ruiz, I'm just telling you, it's going to be a long road back. Well, in my opinion, the best fight in boxing that could possibly be made right now is a fight one of these fighters wants. Right? The young guy wants the fight. It's a little bit shocking. Let's first talk about the old guy. You know him. Two-time Olympic gold medalist. He's ripped up the competition to the point where he is running out of people to fight. He's so good that the last guy he beat, Luke Campbell, actually said, you know what? Other than Vasiliy Lomachenko, I'm the best person in the division. This guy's so good that Jose Pedraza, after the fight, said, hey, he's a great fighter. And Pedraza said, you know, I was competitive with him until late in the fight. You have excellent opponents. Excellent opponents. Right? Luke Campbell was an Olympic gold medalist, for crying out loud. Pedraza, a former champion. Excellent opponents. Fighting Lomachenko, who, after the fight, concede that they lost to a great fighter. That's how good Lomachenko is. When you come up with lists of the best in the sport pound for pound, Loma necessarily is on it. His fights are interesting because Loma doesn't run. He's the shorter guy actually engaging his opponent. It becomes a chess match. Right? This isn't a Floyd Mayweather low volume fight. This is a fight where Loma's actually in there, engaging. Where did Loma fight Luke Campbell? In Luke Campbell's backyard. Loma's also taking a world tour as part of his career. Right? Understand too, Loma has fought so many guys that Luke Campbell's not the first Olympic gold medalist he beat. Right? Didn't he beat Rigondeaux? And so you look at Loma's career and it's interesting, right? Jorge Linares, Loma's beaten him. You look at the names and you say, my goodness, this guy's already done the work for the legacy. What could he possibly do to put an exclamation point, or perhaps another exclamation point, at the end of his career sentence? And the answer to me is to fight the future. Unbeaten Devin Haney. Now, I've looked at, as all of us have, I'm sure, a lot of films of a lot of young fighters. You're trying to figure out the next big thing in boxing, right? You want to get there early. Because if you stumble upon a Floyd Mayweather or a Manny Pacquiao early, my goodness, talk about a betting opportunity for a lot of fights, right? A lot of fights. You start to prepare before the public is aware of who your fighter even is. Think about Canelo. If you saw the Floyd fight and you said, my goodness, this young guy's holding his own, right? If you thought that, well, guess what? If you bet on Canelo since then, right, he's never lost since then, right? At least not officially. You know how I feel about the Golovkin fights? I thought Golovkin won both. I thought Canelo against Arislandi Lara, I would have taken Lara in that fight. Hell, I did, and I lost the bet, come to think of it, right? But understand, if you're on the Canelo side of the play, you're just getting an annuity, aren't you? Right? You're just showing up and you're just winning. And you're getting decent odds at times. Right? Well, let me just say, I think Devin Haney is very special. I looked at the film clips of him and I wasn't thinking great young fighter. I was thinking, wow, this guy's soon going to be on the pound for pound list. Incredible legs. Incredible legs. Moves around the ring. Makes other guys look like their feet are in cement. Right? Can come in. Not a big puncher, but nor is Loma. Right? But excellent placement of punches. Right? Can come in, drill you with big shots, then leaps in, but leaps in at an angle so he's not getting hit. This guy looks like he could easily dominate the division for the next 3 to 8 years. And incredibly, he's calling out Lomachenko. Now, Haney has a fight coming up against a damn good fighter. I'm not even going to talk about that fight because to me, it's a foregone conclusion that Devin Haney wins that match. So, what happens if Loma fights Devin Haney? Let's say within the next 6 to 8, we'll make it 6 to 10 months. Right? If that fight's announced, I'm going with Lomachenko. I believe the reason this fight is a great fight, and I mean a great fight, visually it would be astonishing, is because Lomachenko and Haney have two of the best sets of legs in boxing. And what you would have is a young guy who's able to avoid getting hit. I mean, Haney looks like the kind of guy who isn't even wet after a rainstorm. Right? He comes in, he hits up a guy, then he backs away. And the guy's throwing shots and just can't catch up with Haney. Right? Haney uses his legs for defense. But Lomachenko has a skill set that you need a guy like Haney to bring out. And that's the ability to stay in the pocket against a mobile opponent. I think this fight would be mind-blowing because I think, first off, you'd see the guys moving around like this, right? Then you would notice Haney trying to get off big shots, then backing away. And I believe Loma would be able to back away with him. Loma would look, in my opinion, like an NFL DB, an NFL defensive back. Think Rod Woodson. Think Mike Haynes. Think Deion Sanders. Right? I think Loma would force Haney to fight inside. And while Haney can fight inside, I don't think Haney at this stage of his career can fight inside like Lomachenko. Right? So if this fight is made soon, I think Loma in his 30s beats Haney in his early 20s by having a skill set deep in the pocket that Haney can't avoid. In other words, Haney's that fighter who hits you, backs away, takes a breather. Here, when it gets too hot in the kitchen, if you're fighting Lomachenko, you can't leave the kitchen. The kitchen's going to follow you wherever you go. I think Haney will find that his punches are too long for Loma. Right? Loma knows how to tuck his head inside of your shots. Right? I think Haney would realize that Loma's head movement won't allow him to throw his long shots. His long game goes out the window. Then I think Loma would follow him, so there's no escape. Loma would neutralize Haney's legs by following him around the ring. There's sequences in the Campbell fight that are excellent, where Campbell goes back. Campbell's a little bit longer than Loma, was taller than Loma. Campbell goes back and Loma literally just pivots and follows him. He forces Campbell to fight him. Now a veteran fighter, right? Look at the rematch for Ali Frazier, taller fighter against a shorter guy determined to get inside. Right? A veteran fighter would find a way to clinch Lomachenko as Loma comes in and wants to stay in the pocket. But I'm just telling you, because Loma's hand speed is so fast, right? I believe even vets have a hard time clinching Loma. Right? I think a play on this is going to be apparent in the upcoming Andy Ruiz-Joshua fight, where if Ruiz gets deep in the pocket again, and I expect him to win that fight the same way he won the first fight, if Ruiz gets deep in the pocket again and starts throwing a combination, you're going to find that even though he's bigger, Anthony Joshua will not be able to clinch Ruiz, because it's very hard to clinch a guy who's busting off combinations inside. So, Lomachenko strikes me as the kind of guy who, at this stage, is fighting for legacy. He has to realize, as a guy who relies on hand speed and movement, you know what they say, the legs are the first to go. He has to realize that eventually Father Time's going to beat him. That he's already in his 30s. Even though the public doesn't fully appreciate Devin Haney right now, Loma can look at the same films I'm seeing. Loma has to realize that there's a group out there who feels that Devin Haney might take off like Saul Alvarez has. But beating Devin Haney now is going to help Loma's legacy down the road as much, if not more, than any of the other fights Loma has had. Right? Floyd Mayweather can sit back right now. A guy he beat is about to try to win the light heavyweight title after winning at middle, super middle, right, hell, junior middle, after the Floyd Mayweather fight. Right? Think about that. That's mind-blowing. Well, if I'm Lomachenko right now, I seriously consider fighting Haney. Understand, Haney has big money behind him. He's one of these fighters now on the zone. Right? I consider fighting Haney right now. This is a fight that's made for a rematch clause. In other words, Loma would be making a play for the boxing cognoscente. Right? He would be saying, hey, look, I know there's buzz on this young guy. So much buzz that the guy's on the zone already. I know there's buzz on this young guy from boxing insiders, from hardcore boxing fans. I know they're looking at his hand speed. I know they're looking at his foot speed, and they're saying, gee, how can an old guy like me hang? Right? If I'm Loma, I take the fight. I understand. The fight's ahead of the public. It might not be a big sellout. I take the fight in a mid to small venue. It would be more of a TV event than an on-site event. And if I'm Haney, I give Loma the rematch clause. Because the only way the rematch clause comes into effect is if I beat Loma. If I beat Loma the first time, I want the exclamation point rematch clause. Right? Understand, if Haney pulls off a big upset, in my eyes, in beating Loma the first time, then that second fight is going to be huge. Just like I expect the rematch of Deontay Wilder against Tyson Fury to be huge. Right? And of course, if Loma beats Haney, then Loma can sit back and know he's the guy who gave Haney his first loss. Loma can sit back and just watch what happens to Haney's career. If Haney then hits new heights and has a Hall of Fame career like Julian Jackson did, right, like Canelo is right now, then some of that shine, some of that light is going to reflect back on Loma's career. I like Loma over Haney if the fight happens within the next 10 months. Haney wants the fight. Young guys don't know what they don't know. Right? Haney wants the fight. I believe his promoter is Eddie Hearn. In other words, he has enough promotional muscle behind him to make a serious play, to make the fight happen. Right? If I'm Lomachenko, for legacy, I seriously consider fighting Devin Haney right now. If you wait 2 years, I'm just telling you, Devin Haney is a monster right now. Right? He's a monster right now. But you can be in the jungle and not notice him right now. Right? In 2 years' time, this might be a Godzilla situation where he's such a monster that everyone's noticing him. Understand, right now, Lomachenko can say, hey, look, I'm the pound for pounder. I get to call the shots on location and stuff like that. Right? In 2 years' time, the public might be the outfit calling the shots. Right? The public might say, hey, Loma, when are you going to fight Devin Haney? This might start to look like a scene out of Rocky III, that movie, where people are saying to the champ, hey, when are you going to fight this guy? Right? I believe it's the best fight in boxing that can be made, and that's with some spectacular fights on the horizon. Right? Errol Spence, Sean Porter. Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, if both of those guys get by their next opponents. Right? You have some great fights. Canelo, Kovalev. I think that's a great fight. I personally am expecting big-time fireworks in the Derevyanchenko-Golovkin fight. Right? Regis Prograis, in my opinion, is going to beat unbeaten Josh Taylor, but that's going to be a great fight. And that fight's going to be in Europe. Right? Prograis is going to travel across the Atlantic. Prograis. Well, let me just say, in a universe of great fights, I don't think visually there would be a more arresting fight. I don't think legacy-wise there's a bigger fight than Lomachenko versus Devin Haney. I like Loma in that fight. Let me hear from you. I know this video is early, folks. We're trying to be early. As former President John F. Kennedy used to say, the time to fix the roof is when the sun's outside. Right? Let me hear from you. Let me know your thoughts. I hope you leave them in the comment section of this video. Thanks for stopping by.